Hi there, my name is Kim Moon and I'm a twin flame channel and Western astrologer, and this is a video about the new moon in Cancer taking place July 17th at 2:31 p.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local time. Thank you so much to everyone who has participated in Creator Conference, both the guests as well as the participants. You all made it such a rich, vibrant, and engaging opportunity for all of us to step into our power. I really appreciate all the questions you brought as participants, all the likes, subscribes, and shares. And for every guest, you guys brought them some of the best questions, and I'm so grateful that you showed up. And to the guests, I'm so grateful you decided to join. It was my heart's dream to be able to build a bridge for people out of just perceiving energy and into creating it. And you all were part of that bridge during this week. And I can't thank you enough for being willing to be resources for people to step into the next chapter of their life. With that is this new moon in Cancer, bringing forward a lot of change and a lot of drama and a lot of intensity. We're going to get into it in just a minute, but if you're new to the channel, welcome. If you listen to the end of this video, I do something called First Look, where I provide my initial reaction and intake to the lunation. That's 2 weeks from here. That'll be the full moon in Aquarius, so that you understand how the energy we're looking at today progresses and moves into that particular next major lunation and allows you to prepare. Our new moon in Cancer is taking place here at the 24th degree of Cancer, and it has some interesting conversations going on, which I'm going to break down one by one, but let me give you the overview. We've got an opposition from Pluto in Capricorn. We've got a square to Chiron in Aries. We've got a sextile to Uranus here in Taurus. And we've got a trine to Neptune here in Pisces, in addition to being conjunct Juno right next to it in Cancer as well. Wow, this is just extraordinarily powerful energy, because what we have going on is just about every outer planet is in communication with this new moon. So all the outer planets are the planets from Saturn out to Pluto, and that includes Neptune, Uranus, we've got Chiron, and we've got Pluto, all in conversation with this new moon. And this brings a level of intensity, because when the outer planets, just one of them, are in communication with a lunation, we get emotions on high, transformations on 10. But instead of just one of them, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them in communication with this particular new moon in Cancer. New moons can be very emotional, full moons can be very emotional, but when they are in the water sign of Cancer, its home sign, we have a deepened, concentrated focus on our interior emotional world. And the outer planets, these are life changers. The moon, the sun, Mercury, Venus, and Mars, these are personality changers, these are mood changers. But when we've got these outer planets on the move, we have the structural foundation, both the floor and the walls of our life, shifting. And what we're going to see as we're moving through this lunation, you've probably seen it in the week leading up to it, certainly we'll see it in the week after, is our emotional response to the way this transformation is unfolding. Cancer itself deals with not only our emotions, but also deals with home, the location and the place, the building and the city or town. It deals with the housing. It also deals with mothers, deals with female authority figures. And there could be some level of structural transition or transformation with these people in our lives at this time. We may have, a change in our status in motherhood or relationship to our mothers at this particular moment, or our relationship to mothering for ourselves at this particular moment. We may also see if you've got a female boss or teacher or instructor that has been a part of your life. There may be a dynamic change in that relationship at this particular moment as well. In addition to any transformation regarding where you're living or how you're living here on planet Earth. Lots of transition with these outer planets demanding and pushing and pulling for structural change in our lives. There's also a lot of water in this chart, a lot of planets placed in the water signs at this lunation. And this heightens the emotionality of these changes. And this speaks to a lot of something transforming as well in our relationship dynamics with Juno here. And so Uranus demands change specifically through quantum leaps, through evolution, through leaps in consciousness that move us forward. Chiron demands change through the looking at and the dealing with our wounds and transmuting them into wisdom through accountability and ownership and surrender. Neptune invokes change through the washing away of certain things that we may have relied on by placing them in the void or in the fog to be able to be transformed and shape-shifted. And Pluto brings transformation and change through the resurrection cycle. So a definitive ending, an integration, or an afterlife component that allows us to understand things from a higher level perspective, and then a rebirth or a renewal. I've been needing to say a lot to clients and to friends, acquaintances, people in my world who are going through stuff. You know, you're supposed to be going through stuff right now. This is the moment in time where we're all going through stuff. But the reality is, as you're moving through this and the walls and the floors are shifting, if any of you have ever seen any of those MC Escher paintings where it looks like the floor is actually has a stairway on it that's actually transitioning through a wall, that's another floor. Like, it's real kind of crazy right now in the way everything may feel up in the air. This is a moment in time where we are all being chessboarded across the board into our next chapter. So if it feels like things are a little bit shaky or unstable or unpredictable at this moment, it's because we're being uplifted out of our pot that we used to be in, and we're getting placed in the new pot, a bigger pot, so our roots can go deeper, allowing our branches to go much higher and for us to bear more fruit out here in the world. Been having to say a lot to people, if you're feeling like the need to withdraw, the need to go within, not feeling very social, you're wondering what happened to all your friends, none of them are quite available at this moment. It's okay. Caterpillars do not roll up into the cocoon with the homies. That's just not how this works. They go in there alone, and when they come out, they are unrecognizable. They're a completely different state and shape. And that's what's happening here for all of us collectively, is this moment of deepened integration post events of 2020 and 2021 that's allowing us to reemerge as something new, something different. But because we are changing internally, that's this Cancer new moon, there's an emotional internal dynamic shift inside of us. The outpicturing or the outer world that is a function of a reflection of our inner world, our outer world is also having to change. It is also having to shapeshift and transform. They are inextricably linked. And so as we're having this interior breakdown to breakthrough, our outer world is only following suit and mirroring it back to us. Nothing is wrong. You're doing it perfectly fine, guys. Just want to reassure you, if things are shifting, it's because they are supposed to. Okay. Now, I want to highlight here that because of the proximity of Juno and the way in which Cancer deals specifically with families and Capricorn deals specifically with workplaces, its opposing sign, and these are the most influential in this lunation. Some of what we may see unfolding here is a turning point, an opportunity to live in greater creative authority. Pluto deals with authority in our interpersonal dynamics from the inside out, specifically a metamorphosis or complete state change that is in romantic partnership. Absolutely. We're seeing the outer structure of these partnerships needing to shift and transform. And in addition to that, our family dynamics, we are going to see some shifting in the world of our family dynamics as well. Further, because Capricorn is in the mix, we're going to see some workplace changes and workplace interpersonal relationship and dynamic changes as well. For some of you, this may be a promotion. For others of you, this may be a recognition. Look, this is just not the career path, or maybe just not the company for me. Either being released and excused from that job because there's just no longer a fit or match, or releasing or excusing yourself from that job. It's no longer a fit or a match, or the expiration of a contract that worked in one particular way and now is transforming or transitioning into some either new contract and a new location, new industry, or new business. Okay. It's a big deal. And it's perfect timing for this. So if you're seeing all things feel a little bit up in the air, I want to reassure you, they're supposed to be. You're not doing it wrong. Things are not falling apart. They are simply transitioning. And that really has been the name of the game with the planet that deals with power and power dynamics, retrograde square to the north and south node. We call this our nodal axis. We have Pluto in retrograde square to the nodal axis. The nodal axis is always indicative of what we are leaving behind, the lesson we're wrapping up and completing, that's the south node, and the lesson we're leaning into, that's the north node here. And the north node sits in the sign at the final and last degree of Taurus. It's the sign that deals with self-love, nurturing ourselves, having something to feel good about ourselves with, and the sign of comfort in the third dimension. And there is definitely, with Pluto in an aspect that astrologers call tension, the square to that comfort zone, there's definitely a pull to move out of the comfort zone and into the next season as the north node is switching signs. In the next 30 to 60 days, we've got the north node landing squarely in a new sign, that's Aries. And as it moves into Aries, we're all graduating from one season and one set of lessons into the next. And the lesson as we move into the sign of Aries is all about how to be our authentic selves, how to be the self that God made us to be, how to be true and honest about that interiorly with ourselves, and then materially in the outer world, letting the outer world come and lock in and match up with that interior world authenticity. And so what we have going down right now with Pluto retrograde square to the nodal axis is a showdown or a confrontation with all things that Pluto represents, which is the ability to confront our fear, to grasp our power. And with this particular lunation, this Cancerian piece, this Cancer new moon, directly opposite that Pluto, square the nodal axis as well, we've got an invitation on the table to take a good look. What is it that we've been afraid of? What is it that has felt like the boogeyman that we need to be able to confront in order to be able to step into that next chapter of freedom and light and life and being all the things as divine creator beings incarnate that we were created to be? And the emotions are running high at this moment Because if we have been looking the other way or had our head in the sand, thankfully the planets have our back in the way that this universe has been constructed. And it's giving us the opportunity and the wisdom of no escape. It's giving us the opportunity to see, for this energy to be so loud that we have nothing we can do but look at it, but face it, but deal with it and step into our authority and our power. That's the Plutonian energy here, by confronting that which has scared us. Now, this energy has been with us since the beginning of the year in many ways, and it intensified in May. Many of you who were here at that point remember I was talking about that May showed us during that month what we'd have to deal with, confront, or walk through that was running counter to our manifestations that we were calling in January, February, March, and April. Those were the major manifestation months of this year. Now we are moving into a season of crossroads and choice around how we deal with that which has us feeling like, whoa, that is too big, or whoa, I don't know if I can do that, or I don't know if I have the faith for that, or well, what will people say about me? And that part in particular is the piece we're dealing with at this new moon in Cancer, because the new moon in Cancer is bringing up our interpersonal emotional webbing, the ways in which we are tethered in the sense of belonging, tribe, family, co-workers, colleagues, people we want the respect from or the connection to. This season is asking us, this lunation is saying, hey, the lesson here is authenticity and self-love. That's the North Node component. But in order to have that, you're going to have to deal with, yeah, maybe there are some people who emotionally aren't going to rock with you in the next chapter. They're not coming to your freedom show. Maybe there might be some people who are coming who've just been waiting for you to embrace the true you and are just waiting to give you that standing ovation for standing up for you. Maybe there are some ways in which there are some people we've been connected to who the only reason that connection works is if we're pretending to be someone we're not. And maybe this is the moment in time where we pick up our power and say, enough. I need to be all of me. And you can either stay or not stay for that. But this is what it is. Yeah. So you guys are seeing how there's this clarion call that has been building since May and is intensified at this new moon in Cancer to jump into facing where there may be breaks in belonging, breaks in connection, breaks in the emotional webbing of our world by stepping into, here's the truth of who I am, no apologies. And I love me enough to bring this out, bring this online, to just be it, to not, I don't even have to try. I just am it. And you can do what you're going to do, right? So there's a bit of that kind of unfolding here at this new moon in Cancer. And, I want to say that it's all going to be okay, that everything is just going to, we're all going to land in this super happy, wonderful, brilliant place. But what I'm seeing in terms of, my sessions with clients is that within this, because of the way Chiron is impacting this lunation, Chiron being what we call the wounded healer, but he's also the teacher and the wise one. And we've got, some Neptune here as well. Neptune connecting us with the unseen and our capacity to connect with all that is the divine. What we have here is an opportunity for some healing, and healing some long-standing, maybe even some deep-rooted, life-impacting pain or trauma that's had our relationships play out the way that they've played out. And this is an opportunity to bring more us into our interpersonal dynamics and let the dynamics transform and shapeshift as we shapeshift, right? And so I've mentioned this, I've been saying this. Anytime we've got a planet retrograde square to the transit nodal axis, we've got a crossroads moment in time. We've got a fork in the road, an option to get on a higher timeline. But it is going to require us picking up our power. It's an opportunity to get out of participation in our own victim mindset, our own oppression. Well, I can't do this because so and so. I can't do this because my mom, or I can't do this because my brother. I can't do that because, my coworker or my boss. Well, actually, you can. And when we rise to say yes to ourselves, that's really when life rises to say yes to us too, and brings in the appropriate people to meet us where we have chosen to take our stand. It brings in the appropriate allies, the appropriate supports, the appropriate friends and comrades to meet us there. Okay. And so it's an exciting energy depending upon how you respond to this. Like I said, we've been on a steady build since May with this. And this is kind of that moment where if there's been any level of ignoring it or like trying to just juggle it all, keep all the plates in the air, just hold it all together, this is a moment where emotionally it does start to feel like things come apart, but it's for the benefit. The breakdown is for the benefit of a major breakthrough that allows us to stand in greater power and creative authority in our lives. And so I like it, even though it looks a little intense. I like this for us because within this, there's chain breaking, there's freedom, and there's some liberation, especially where it comes to some concrete factors of love and money. We've got Venus here in a very special relationship to Pluto and Neptune, some of the star players acting on the moon, which deals with our emotions and core needs. We've got Pluto and Neptune in a conversation that astrologers called a yod or a yod, depending upon where you learned. People pronounce it different ways. And that yod here is Pluto and Neptune in sextile, but both of them in conjunct Venus, which means that they are not in conversation with Venus, but they can be if we can unlock the power of Pluto and Neptune speaking to one another. And so Neptune and Venus in conversation bring a level of deepened spirituality to our love and our financial stuff, a level of purpose to our money. It's about making a money and making an impact at the same time. It's about having that deeper level of love that it exists beyond all conditions when Neptune and Venus are in conversation. And when Pluto and Venus are in conversation, we get the opportunity for deep, intense, life transforming love or financial situations that can change us. But we don't have access to either one of those at the in conjunct. The only way we can unlock their power is if we allow the working together of Pluto and Neptune. And Pluto and Neptune, when they work together, that's a key feature of this year, is spiritual transformation, growth, and change. When those two come together, it's a deep level of really coming into a spiritual understanding, wisdom, growth, and change that allows us to move onto these higher timelines, because all of it starts in the ether before it comes into form. You just even look at, the basics of the way, animals in the animal kingdom, including us, get born. There's something immaterial that exists before it comes into the full material form. All things are a thought before they're in form. Before anyone invented a chair, it was an idea in someone's mind. Before someone invented the device you're listening to this on, it existed in the inanimate before it existed in the animate. And so, what we have on the table this year is a supreme opportunity for manifestation when it comes to calling in, dreaming up, fantasizing, imagining, daydreaming. Where could our life be if, shame or fear or attachment or the past didn't hold us back? And these are all the things that Pluto represents, that Neptune has the supreme ability to wash away. What if we knew we couldn't fail? Then what? What if that one idea you had, that business idea or that project idea, what if it was going to be a guaranteed success if you just picked up your power, that's also Pluto, confronted the things you're afraid of, Pluto, instead stood for it, stepped into it? What if it could go better than you imagined? There's this YouTuber I follow because she just lights up my feed called, I think she's Marie Bustin Moves. She got kind of big during 2020. And she just does dance stuff. And she's got this tagline and slogan: what's the best that could happen? Like, what is the best that could happen? That's the invitation on the table for 2023. Instead of feeling like things never go right and it's always bad, blah, 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 we have a breakthrough opportunity to stand in, well, what's the best that could happen? And this new moon in Cancer in particular, as all of our emotional gunk that has us attached to what is and clinging to it or trying not to let things change and transform, is coming up. We have a real opportunity at this particular new moon to say, okay, so everything's changing. Things are not quite going the way I thought they would this year. What's the best that could happen out of this? And to step into play and imagination with that question as Venus prepares to retrograde in the sign that specifically deals with creative authority, that's Leo, and our childlike nature, that's Leo, and our sovereignty, which is our authority to make what we say happen in our lives be what actually happens in our lives. What is the best that can happen? That's the invitation on the table here. Just writing that down. That may be the title of the video. We'll see. I really like it. I like to see it. It's a moment where we're poked, prodded, and pushed into transformation. And it's a moment that guarantees evolution, guarantees change. Nothing can stay exactly as it's been. And that is actually, in this moment in time, a really empowering thing for all of us. It can be a little uncomfortable, right? Because it can feel like certain doors are closing. And if we were attached to those doors being open, we can feel a little bit like, oh no, what's happening? And it can feel like uncomfortable doors are opening, yet they're the doors we're supposed to walk through because we're meant to pick up our power during this season. Okay. Now, if you're seeing this and this is all resonating for you so far, I'm going to invite you to give the video a like. If you're new here, I'm going to invite you to subscribe. You're certainly welcome to leave how this is unfolding for you in the comments. It may empower, inspire, or validate someone else as they're moving through their journey as well. But if you're finding you really need some help with this, you're feeling a little bit like, oh yeah, everything is changing and I don't know what to do. Certainly seeing a lot of that in my sessions with clients where they're like, okay, it feels like work is going sideways, home is going sideways. It also feels like I don't know what to do with school or, my next step when it comes to this or that relationship. If it really feels like everything is like, whoo, I don't know, we can talk about that in a session and we can talk about where the direction of growth is for you, what is your north node and the transiting north node, and get you some clarity about what the decisions are for you so that you can be really clear. Okay, I know if that's the direction of growth, then these are the decisions that I can make that empower me. because everything that comes up at this time as an opportunity isn't one. Some of them are just going to be distractions and opportunities to repeat some loops. And there's a real demand to not repeat at this time. So if you need some assistance with that, there's definitely there's openings in my calendar before the end of July. When this energy, Pluto retrograde square to the nodal axis, this is going to be with us into mid-August. And this Venus retrograde, this is going to be with us until September. So now would be the time if you're like, okay, I got to figure some stuff out. I need to get some answers. I need to know what's my personal direction of growth. Now's the time to book, to really lay this stuff out so you know what you're working with and where the decisions are to pick up your power. Okay. Now, the direction of change can be the thing I like about this with Venus retrograde and Leo. The direction of change, even though life can feel, I don't know if you've ever seen like Indiana Jones or any of those like crazy kind of like treasure hunt kind of movies. There seems to always be a scene where the hero or the heroine finds themselves in some sort of room where the walls start to close in and the floor starts to rise and there's like some opportunity to get crushed. This is what this looks like to me. And what I want to remind all of us is that pressure creates diamonds. And the pressure that you're feeling at this time is to get into your creative authority and make some decisions. Choose. Be in the place of putting your hands on the steering wheel and deciding. Decide what you want to happen next. And that's, I think this is probably why I'm most excited about the Venus retrograde in Leo. Venus is typically talking about love, but when she's over here in Leo, the sign of self sovereignty, the sign of the queen or the king, the sovereign, she's talking about self love here. And so this major crossroads season, even though the walls are closing in and the floor is rising, maybe there's some spikes on your ceiling. I don't know how bad it is for you or how challenging it may seem to you. But what's happening here is we are getting the option to step into directing the change, putting our hands on the steering wheel and calling our shot. And that's what Creator Conference was all about, is really showing you precisely how much power you have to author your next chapter in life. And this particular year, 2023, is the season, this is the year of choice for all of us. So it's clear we've outgrown where we used to be, but whether we stay in the pot that we've outgrown, letting, our roots get all root bound and cramped up in there, or we go to the new pot, that's up to us. And how peaceful this transition is or how drama filled it is, that is also up to us. And this can be a drama-free change, but we would need to be willing to face the things that scare us and one by one declare that they have no power over us and we're just moving forward regardless. Okay. It's our resistance to the change or our insistence to how it is or attachment to the old that's going to produce pain in this season. Okay. We have to get out of this closed up room. We have to step into the new. Okay. If you need some help with that, you can book with me over at kmoonastro.com. Personal reading would be good. If you've only got one or two areas of life you want to look at, 30 minutes is enough. But if you need guidance in multiple areas of life, I strongly recommend you consider the hour. Chances are they're all linked, but to unpack all of this may take a little bit of time. Okay, so be generous with yourself. If you need it, take up the space. Like I said, these outer planets, they're no joke. They are demanding that we move. We can't stay in this room where the walls are closing in. And now's the time to do that. Okay. What you're going to be seeing external to you as the intensity continues to ratchet up, and maybe even within yourself, is people's response to being pressured to do something different, right? Some people, the pressure's on and they're like, great, this is where I shine. And they just get into action, and you just start hearing news about these people. Oh, so and so moved, so and so got a new job, so and so launched a business, so and so's doing this thing or that thing, or so and so is getting divorced, or so and so just impromptu proposed. They're now getting married. For some people, their automatic response to this is like, I know what I need to do and I'm just doing it. They're slicing through the waves and they're just swimming. For other people, it may take a little internal, kind of reflection. You may see some people really go inward and internal in this energy. You may see some people like slow down, need to move into a period of less communication while they really deal with communicating with their interior world, deal with themselves. When they feel things shifting beneath their feet and getting a little bit, shifting in their outer world, some people will find that this evokes a sensation of chaos within them, and they'll just add chaos and deconstruction to it. You'll see them kind of haphazardly making decisions, like just kind of throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, so to speak. You'll see kind of like talking out of both sides of their mouths, and it may seem like they're having like a total breakdown, or they'll just kind of like pick up an old addiction all of a sudden that you thought they were over, or pick up an old habit, seeking comfort wherever comfort can be found in the midst of what feels like chaos to them. You'll see some people get depressed because there are endings of chapters here, and there could be some sadness with that. As seasons change and life changes, there could be some sadness for some people. And you may see other people just get edgy and anxious because what's next is unseen and outside of the comfort zone. And you may find some people just insist on like powerlessness and the identity that others are just doing things to them. And, because of that, they can't move forward and they're just stuck, and, get into, a place of agreeing with being a victim until that gets all out of their system and then they're ready to change. You're going to see all sorts of stuff external to you as people move through this, or even in your own interior world, like, oh shit, is that me? You may see some of that in yourself. Whatever you're seeing, it's okay. Try to be gentle with yourself. Try to be gentle with the people around you. Know that people's stuff is up. It's hard for it not to be in this energy. Where you can give people space and grace to just move through it in the way they're gonna, give them that space and grace. Where you need to give yourself space and grace, give that to yourself, right? Just give yourself the room to move through it in whatever way you're gonna move through it. But know that however you're moving through it, the only exit, the only door out of this room that's like walls coming together and the floor and the ceiling collapse, and the only exit is through owning your personal power. That's it. That's the only doorway out of here, is just getting into a place of full agreement that you have the power to change how it is. All right. That's really important to know. If you've ever graduated from anything, graduated from high school, college, university, you already know that you've seen some friends thrive in it and other friends be challenged by it, only to then rise to it. Regardless, the direction is up for all of us. So I want to give you the Venus retrograde dates because they're really important to understand that this is the moment in time where we're getting this invitation to figure out Venus at her core. Yes, love, yes, money, yes, beauty, but all three of those have in common is what she is at her core, and that's value. And so this Venus retrograde is an opportunity for us to reevaluate what we value personally, because she's in a personal sign that's Leo, and reevaluate what we value enough to create more of at this time. So let me give you the dates. She enters shadow on June 19th. So that's basically a month ago. She entered the retrograde zone at the 12th degree of Leo. And so thematically, all the things that came up in the last 30 days, 40 days are the things that your Venus retrograde is going to be about. Okay. Now, on July 22nd, that's when she stations retrograde. So that's the beginning of the review period for those things that came up when she entered shadow. So think back to the things that presented themselves as feeling personally challenging to you mid-June, all the way up until mid-July. On July 22nd, she stations retrograde, and that's when the review period kind of begins. Now, on September 3rd, that's when she's going to station direct. She's going to move in apparent direct motion in the sky, and that's in September. That's when the 40-day review period will begin to wind down, and we'll be invited to take some actions that align us to the things that we decided we value enough to create during the Venus retrograde period. Is around that September 3rd time. And then on October 7th, that's when she exits shadow, and we are fully done with the Venus retrograde thematics of this year. So if you need to replay that, go ahead and replay that so you can get those dates. But thematically, again, what we're dealing with is, what do we value enough to create more of it? And what do we not value anymore that we want to put it down? She's about to station retrograde here on July 22nd, and it is not lost on me that as she's preparing to station retrograde, in communication with her, we have Mars, our motivation, our ambition, and our passion. Lilith, where we have our non-negotiable breakpoints. What are our non-negotiables? And Pallas, where it is we feel the need to self-protect. Now, Pallas and Mars, ambition and self-protection, are hanging out in the sign of discernment and wisdom and dedication and service. But Venus and Lilith, what we value and our non-negotiables, they are hanging out in the sign that deals with creative authority. And so you put all of this together, what we're getting is an invitation to make some decisions about where we're putting our effort, our action, and our energy when it comes to what we want to create and what we just don't have energy to put up with anymore. What we know, we just have to put it down. So we just don't have the bandwidth for it anymore. This is what this Venus retrograde is beginning to reveal to us in our psyche and our consciousness. And this is really how the planets, again, they have our back. This universe is wonderfully constructed to support the evolution in our consciousness, to be those true divine creator beings incarnate, to really step into purpose and wisdom with this. All right. So I really like to see this. If you need some help figuring this out for yourself, again, I recommend getting a reading if this is like, okay, but what does this mean for me? Especially as this Venus retrograde is unfolding, we've got the North Node in Venus's sign at the final degrees, wrapping up a very particular lesson from the last eclipse cycle, because Venus is closing out North Node is closing out transit in Taurus, and that's one of Venus's home signs. So there is a direction of growth. It is very clear and specific. It is indeed laid out in your chart, and you can work that. If you need more specifics on it, we can work that in a reading for you, and you can book over at kmoonastro.com. Okay, I mentioned it's going to require a confrontation with something that we're afraid of. I talked about Mars, Pallas, Venus, and Lilith. What I like about this is Saturn's opposition to the four of them up here as Venus retrograde begins, because Saturn deals with solidification. Saturn deals with boundaries. Saturn deals with contracts, agreements, commitments, structure, and solidifying structure. So, whatever changes that we decide we're going to make during this Venus retrograde, as Venus comes out of retrograde toward the end of it in September and she stations direct, these changes, they do look like they get a little bit locked in terms of, what we're doing. And so this is, as this pressure is rising, this is definitely not the time to stick our head in the sand. This is the time to go, okay, let me level with myself. Let me be honest with myself here. What's the truth of where I've been getting in my own way and been in agreement with my own victimization? And where am I willing to pick up my power, manifest a new timeline, manifest a new outcome, so on and so forth? Speak some new words over my life so I can create a new world to live in. Where do I need to do that? Because as Saturn, as Venus ends her retrograde and speaks to Saturn, we are going to see that these changes will get solidified. Okay. So it's an exciting time. Like I said, crossroads, jump onto a new timeline. This is our opportunity to do it. Now, the one other thing I want to make sure I tell you guys about this Venus retrograde is awfully chatty with Chiron here. Now, it's not a bad thing. Many of you, would say, oh man, it's just going to be heartbreak. No, I don't decree that. I disagree with that for us. Here's what I'm going to say. This Venus retrograde is going to speak to Chiron 3 different times. She's already spoken to Chiron once as she was moving direct in the last 40 days. She's going to speak to Chiron again when she goes retrograde, and then a third time when she moves direct. What this means, Chiron has specifically been doing work in Aries around healing the wounded ego. And that's going to come into heightened healing during Chiron trine Venus in Leo, Leo being the sign that deals with our ego, Aries being the sign that deals with our identity. A lot of people have beef with the construct of ego. I don't. Let me give you guys another way to understand it. The ego is our friend. It's a built-in piece of who we are. We wouldn't have it if we didn't need it. God didn't put superfluous parts in us. So if what we have is a part of us that deals with our outer world interfacing with people, and with money and with love and with shelter, there's a function for it. Now, can ego be out of check? Yes, but so too can spirit, right? All things can get imbalanced. None of them is better part of us than another part of us. It's your ego that keeps you fed. It's your ego that keeps you housed, clothed, with a job, because you need one given the way Earth is presently structured. It's your ego that allows you to self-check and self-correct when you've stepped past your own moral code. It's that ego that goes, ooh, that wasn't good. I don't feel good about myself in that. Now, can the ego run amok? Absolutely. But what Chiron in Aries has been trying to do is create for us wisdom in our woundedness when it comes to the identities that we've held all the way up until this time, is trying to help bring wisdom to us. And now with this Venus retrograde and this Leo deals with our ego, our outer facing projection of who we are. Now, with Chiron having this conversation with Venus retrograde during this season, we're getting an opportunity to heal any pieces of our ego that have gotten fractured, fragmented, and shattered. This is going to be a supreme opportunity to come home to who we are, to come home to any parts of ourselves that we've shaved off, hidden, repressed. It's going to be an opportunity to bring those parts home and embrace them and love them and cherish them for the way that they attempted to self-protect or protect us at an earlier time. And so if things come up for you in your own ego where you're like, oh man, I wish I hadn't done that, or you feel ashamed or embarrassed by anything you've done or said, this is the moment in time to really have a look. What was my ego trying to protect me from? Because that's the ego's job. That's sole job, just protection. What was my ego trying to keep me safe from? And first of all, thank it. Thank you for attempting to keep me safe. And then secondly, make some decisions. Did I really need to be kept safe from that? Was I really in danger there? Or is now the time where I can say, thank you, ego. We don't have to protect around that anymore. I now have a new relationship to that thing. I'm no longer afraid of it, because that's typically when the ego kicks up, is when we're afraid, when there's fear. When the ego goes into hyper protection mode, it's because fear is on the table. And with Pluto out here doing the most, fear is definitely on the table for all of us at this moment in some way, shape, or form. And this Venus retrograde is going to give us a chance to not be run by our fear and instead step into faith during this season. And so I like that. There's an opportunity for a quantum leap. There's an opportunity for quantum growth, because this Venus retrograde also speaks to Uranus. And Uranus is like that hand of the divine, that hand of God that just reaches into your life, snatches the needle across the record, and just puts you on a new path. Where that newness is coming from is going to be from within. It's going to be from inside of us. It's going to be from God within us. Okay. And so for those of you who've really been like, I need a breakthrough, I'm manifesting a breakthrough. I know I got to be different about some things. I know I got to approach some things, think of some things differently. I got to take some new action. This Venus retrograde is going to be so empowering for you when it comes to your ability to step into that. Okay. So just wanted to put that out there for anyone who fears Venus retrograde or thinks it's going to be only about exes coming back. Not this one. This one is facilitating a level of self coming back online, and that self being more empowered than it's ever been. And so that's really exciting for all of us to lean into. Okay. All right. Do I have anything else in my notes here to talk about? Just double checking. A retrograde of revelation, and introspection and self-empowerment. Venus retrograde will be that for us. So I like to see that. I like to share that. And yeah, I think that's it. This is our moment for self-empowerment and growth and transformation. And if you're just feeling like life has got you up against a wall in this, then let's take a look at your chart. This is your chance to get a reading so you can break through to the other side, because you definitely have choices in this. But it is going to be a matter of seeing it from a non-victim perspective and really seeing, yes, there are some doors closing, but let's look at where the opportunities are and where doors are opening for you. Okay, you can book with me over at kmoonastro.com. Link is below this video. And if you're new, welcome. I'm going to do something called First Look Now, where I pull up the next lunation so we can see how the energy and the invitations from the universe really evolve from here, and thus how we can evolve with it and give you a little opportunity to be prepared. So give me a moment. I'm going to pull up that chart and we'll dive right in. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Helps the content circulate. And we'll talk about the new moon in Aquarius in just a moment. Did I say new moon? I meant full moon, guys. My apologies. All right, so here's our full moon in Aquarius taking place on August 1st at 9:31 p.m. If you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States, please check a time zone converter for your local time. Here is our full moon at the 13th degree of Aquarius. Let me see. Did I get that? It's not 9:31. It's 2:31. Let me edit this so we can get it exact. Meant to press the 2 button. There we go. All right. That looks much closer to correct. There we are, 9th degree of Aquarius. There's our sun in opposition at the 9th degree of Leo. Who's talking to our full moon? Let's see. We've got a conversation coming in from Jupiter. Okay, we've got Jupiter directly square to the full moon. And we've got a conversation coming in from okay, we've got the Shaman's asteroid here. Make Make. All right. Let me just see. Any one of the other asteroids or centaurs. We've got Vesta. All right. Well, that's interesting because the only major planetary conversation going on is Jupiter. Well, that'll be a nice reprieve. Venus will be retrograde, especially after all the intensity of the Capricorn and Cancer full moon and new moon. The last 2 lunations, I will say the June, July lunations were a little intense because of how deeply featured Uranus and Pluto were. But this particular lunation is just Jupiter and then a few of the asteroids. And so this is going to be a lot easier. It'll be an opportunity to integrate some of the stuff that got shaken up in May, June, and July. So I like to see that. Whenever we have Jupiter squaring a lunation, there is opportunity. It does come with a little bit of tension. There's a growth opportunity here. Who else is this Jupiter talking to? Anyone? Okay, interesting. This is really talking about an opportunity to step into some closure, it looks like, and some personal evolution. Because we have a T square between sun and moon and then Jupiter. Whenever we've got a T square, we look to the 4th sign of that mode that's conspicuous in its omission. That's Scorpio, and the way to balance the tension that comes in. And there is tension between our needs and our identity, which is in part why people say full moon. People just get crazy around full moons because we have needs and identity sometimes in opposition. Well, every time in opposition. But the way to balance this energy is to lean into Scorpio's transformative power. And this is about letting things go. This is also about stepping into new rebirth. This is that whole resurrection cycle. This is also about not only completions, but in addition to that, shape shifting and the alchemy to shape shift and transform. So it does look like this is another period of time where people are being chance a little bit more internal, working a bit more on themselves, focused a bit more on where their growth is and what they need to work on in order to facilitate their next chapter. So this doesn't surprise me. You may find that people are just like really busy at this time, or like, you know, deeply processing some stuff, if you go into, some sort of level of like, internal processing through like lots of journaling or meditation or even sleeping, or binge watching a show or reading a book, just kind of getting lost in something that allows the subconscious mind to take over and do its processing work in the way that it's going to do. Some of you may find therapy or coaching very helpful during this period of time as you move through this. It looks like this is going to be a continuation of the integration of transformation. Oh my gosh. So that's what this full moon in Aquarius looks like. So I like to see it. I think it's pretty positive, but it speaks to an ongoing kind of season of transformation, growth, and change that we have been in, only accelerating as we move into the full moon in Aquarius. Lots of growth opportunity here. You're going to see that there will be opportunities that come your way, especially for those of you who are dealing with financial and work stuff, money stuff. It does look like that does begin to unfold at this lunation, the full moon in Aquarius, but it does look like it requires you to put something down in order to pick something else up. So there's that. All right, you guys, it's my pleasure to do this with you. I'm here at the new and the full moons. If you're new, welcome. Hit that subscribe button. If you heard something that resonates, definitely throw it in the comment section, and hit the like, because it definitely helps the content circulate. I'd be curious to know what you guys are seeing unfold as we hit this lunation and what's shifting for you. It may help somebody else feel a little less alone on their journey if you're willing to share. All right, take great care, everyone. I'll see you at the full moon in Aquarius. Bye for now.